Hey guys, so this is kind of a first for us in terms of the format, and we really kind of want to make it very informal, just a conversation. We're not here to pitch or kind of lecture. It's more about, a lot of times we're here at conferences and we don't have a lot of time to dig in on publishing and talk to everyone and vice versa. So the idea here is basically, if you guys ever wanted to find out more about publishing, we've got very, esteemed people in attendance that you can ask. Obviously, I guess most of us are China focused, but we have a lot of experience in other parts of the Asian region. So Asia will be the focus, but publishing in general is also okay. So yeah, with that, hope you guys came prepared with some questions. If not, I'm going to be doing a lot of talking. So yeah, so.
Well, I'm just curious, how many people have actually spoken to publishers in China already and probably have gotten a lot of the shtick? Just curious, not a lot of people, that's good. So.
Yeah, that's a good one. So is everyone here actually a game developer? Is anyone here not a game developer? Okay, so if you guys are, I'm assuming you guys are, for those that are game developers, have you guys worked with a publisher before? Or have experience in working with a publisher, or interested to learn more about what's involved with that? Or do you guys, it's pretty much impossible to know everything about publishing. I don't think any of us do. So why don't we do this? So we'll start with quick intros. So just really quickly about myself. So 6 Waves, we have been publishing free-to-play games since 2008. So based out of Hong Kong, but for mobile games, well, I guess since 2008 we've partnered with over 200 developers from all over the world. So originally on Facebook, and now we're focusing on mobile publishing in Asia. So Hong Kong, Japan, Taiwan, and now Korea. So over to you.
Yeah. Our company is called RedAtoms. We were founded back to 2009, and similar to their background, actually, in the very beginning, we were like a Facebook PC SNS game developer, and then at that moment, actually, we helped Disney to port the game from. We are based in China, but we helped them to port the game from the US to Japan. It's kind of weird, but we got a deal. And then we switched to mobile in 2010 or 11, and then we did quite well. I mean, China, Taiwan, and Korea market. And in Korea, actually, we released a game, and we found the biggest publisher out there. So if you have any question regarding to the publishing, I'll try my best to answer. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, my name is Matt. I lead Yoda One's business development team. Yoda One is basically a China publisher that has global publishing capabilities. And we started in 2011 with China focused primarily, and since then we've kind of expanded to do other markets as well. We typically enjoy working with a lot of indie developers to bring to global stages, as well as bring a bunch of foreign developers into China. And pretty much it.
Cool. So how many, actually, it's interesting, I see some actual publishers in the audience too, so that's pretty cool. Welcome, thanks for sticking around. So for those of you that are actually developing games, could you raise your hands once again, just so we know? Okay, sort of developing. Does that mean you're kind of developing? Starting, okay, good. Cool, so I'm sure you have questions related to what you do after you've already started, or, do you guys have anything you want to just throw out at us? Yeah, go for it.
Well, not totally specific to publishing quite yet, but all week, or these past couple days, it's all been China is the new hotness, or China is too mature, and it's all this, and go to Southeast Asia, that's the emerging stuff. But what happened to Japan and Korea? Is it just they've been around and sort of mature, or why have I heard nothing about them for a while?
You guys want to take it?
Yeah, so what I would kind of say to that is that, I mean, you've probably heard a lot about China. It happens to be one of the more difficult markets to get into, just because of the friction with the Android market and the fragmentation. And I think that that's a big difference between China and Japan in terms of the app stores. And with Japan, I mean, China, Japan, and Korea all behave pretty independently from the rest of the world. And I think that you're seeing a lot more focus on China because it takes a lot more of a culturalization to kind of break into the market, because you have both on the App Store side, on the game design side, the monetization. I mean, it's really quite a different market compared to anything else that's out there. And
let me add one point. Actually, a lot of people talking about like China is because everybody knows that China in mobile gaming right now is going to surpass the US in #1 in the world. So it's #1 in the world, so everybody talks about that. But it doesn't mean that it's easy. Actually, extremely hard. I can tell you that actually in the end of last year, there are like 28,000 developers in China. So do you know like how many percentage of people or developers or like company they make money? I can tell you like less than like 100. So you can see that like in terms of percentage, actually very, very low. So actually China is not easy, but it's big in terms of the pie. And so far not many foreign developer, even like a Japanese developer, success in China. And like 70% of the revenue-wise actually goes to two companies. One is called Tencent, the other is called, what's that, NetEase. Yeah, so the other like 28,000 something company are in the 30% of the pie. So you can understand how hard it is. And the other thing is about Japan, because personally I'm Taiwanese. I live in Japan for 4 years before. And as I mentioned, we help like Disney to port the game to Japan. So even though we have a Japanese team office before, but Japanese market is very different. It's their art style, like character and all the gameplay. Actually, they have their own typical way, which is very unique to the rest of the world. So if you want to develop a game, you got to think about only for Japanese market. And if you develop I mean, in China, you probably can go to like outside of Japan, you can go to like Southeast Asia or Korea or Taiwan. But for Japan, it's only Japan market only. For the Korea, actually, what we found, because we were in like a top 3 top grossing iOS in Korean market for about a year. So in Korea, we did quite well. And we found that actually Korean customer behavior actually is very similar to Chinese, I mean, compared to Japanese. So that gives you some sense. Actually, geographic-wise, it's kind of close, and customer behavior-wise, actually, it's closer compared to Japan. Yeah.
Those are all really good points. Just a little bit on top of that, Japan is, I'd say, the most, as Andrew just said, the most unique, and by far. But in all 3 countries, I guess, the number of overseas developers that have succeeded or are currently sitting in the top 20 grossing is pretty much like 1 or 2 at most. And those extreme sort of outlying cases are because they've actually established a local presence and are spending or outspending pretty much everyone in the market. So it's possible to do, but I think it's more realistic for developers or a lot of indies that are here to think about where else can we look, given that I don't have a hit game yet or the budget to kind of use those tactics, right? And in that case, they could actually talk to publishers. But I'd say Korea is actually, in terms of the game style, it's a little bit more of a fit for Western games. So you'll see games with like medieval themes, which actually do work in Korea, where, as opposed to Japan or China, which is a little bit more, I'd say, less of the Western feel, a little bit more anime style.
One thing I want to point out is Taiwanese market. Although I'm Taiwanese, and doesn't mean that I want to like promote Taiwan. But if you go to like to look at 2015, in terms of Google Play and App Store, and Taiwan just like 23 million people. But it's like a top 5 in terms of revenue in the world. So and is similar to Korean market, and is more open-minded to the Western style. So if you have an interest, actually, that is the other market you can take a look.
Yeah, and on top of that, so Taiwan is number 4, which is bigger than Germany, and Hong Kong, which is even smaller, about 7 million people, is somewhere in the bottom of the top 10 in terms of Google Play revenue.
So I'm wondering if Google Play does end up coming to China in 2016 or even 2017 if it takes a while, what will that change for publishers and what will it change for developers?
So kind of the way we see Google Play is coming into the market. I mean, right now the China market is incredibly fragmented, as you know. It's 200 or so app stores that are always consolidating, but there's so many of them. And right now the market share is really taken up by a couple of huge players in the market. So with Google Play entering the market, I mean, we have high hopes that it might help a lot of foreign developers kind of enter the market. Maybe, I mean, it would be great if it depends on the partnerships that they have with the other regional stores, but if they could also kind of geo by testing in China. But I mean, the reality is that it's going to enter the market. It's going to be very slow. It's not going to have the same market share and traction that the other companies already have.
I'm going to add some points here. I mean, actually, for us, because we are developers, as a developer, we definitely want Google Play to enter China as soon as possible. Actually, they should never leave China. They should stay there. I mean, 100% or like even more, they should stay there. However, they quick. And then the time they enter China actually is a little bit slow, too slow. And then those are like dominate like a big market, such as 360, 91, or etc. Like Baidu. Actually, they have already like occupied 80% of the market. And of course, like there are a lot of rumors that Google going to have so each handset they're going to donate like $1. So if you're going to like okay, you produce one, and I'm going to give you $1 to have my Google Play in your handset. But nobody knows it's true or not. And then, I mean, this market is kind of mature so far, I mean, at this stage, so it's getting tougher. Yeah.
I think it will also kind of, I think it'll also kind of depend on whether or not, what the ad situation that ends up happening with Google Play in China is. Because, I mean, right now, on the Android side, I mean, with the exception of a couple, there are really no ad networks in Android in China. So if Google Play decides to go in that direction, you might see a lot more maybe casual or ad-based games coming into the market. So that should be interesting.
The other thing which will help is it will lend legitimacy to games as well. So one of the issues that overseas developers have is if they've launched their game in the West, you'll often find clones pretty much immediately on random marketplaces in China. And to be able to enforce that and track down and communicate with the marketplace and prove that you're actually the original IP owner is a real challenge, and it's tough to get that done. So I think Google Play launching can only be a good thing because you would hope that they would operate things properly and keep things in line with sort of what's fair in the market.
Thank you. One more question. You guys have pointed out in China and in Japan, it's very hard for foreign developers to succeed, make a lot of money, maybe one or two good examples. And even when the companies do succeed, they're giving up a bigger piece of their pie than they do in other markets, especially in Japan because of the fragmented Android market.
That's China, not Japan.
That's China, right, exactly, yeah. Can you guys describe like what part of this process is maybe ripe for disruption from like maybe a different publishing model, anything that might kind of come in there and disrupt it to make it easier for developers, more likely for foreign developers to succeed?
Okay.
So like one thing, like goes back to what I was saying about Google Play, and my biggest frustration is I talk to developers from all over the world, and I have to say no to great games because they're very ad based, and there's certain games that are just not possible to turn into a deeper monetizable game. So for me, if there's some way that foreign developers could geo-test in the market and get some metrics and get some traction so that they can go to Chinese publishers and say, look, we've already gotten retention metrics that say this, this, and this for the market. We're getting these numbers. That would be pretty disruptive, and I think you'd see a lot more foreign games coming into the market. But as we've all said, I mean, I guess the first like foreign game right now in China is probably number 12 or 13 on the App Store, and they're paying tons of money to get there. So it's yeah.
Anything? So I think the other thing that's disruptive is any new type of game, like a genre or gameplay mechanic. If something is really compelling, it will take off in those markets regardless. So I'd say historically Japan, for example, has been really tough to crack, but we're starting to see more and more games from overseas and Japanese people are a little bit more open-minded to this. So that's one of the MOs that we've been doing at Six Waves is we introduced Hidden Object Game a long time ago to Japanese social networks, and people ate it up, and it became the #1 game across the whole Yahoo Move Game network. Similarly, we were launching adapted games from overseas with a little bit of Japanese flavor and culturalization, getting the artwork just right, but the actual original game comes from overseas. So it's not the same as every other Japanese game, and people respond positively to that as well.
Yeah, I would suggest for like because there are probably some indie right here, and I thought like you guys make a perfect games. I mean, right over there. Really, I was so, I mean, so it's so amazing. Like within a short period of time, and just like a 2 or 1 person, you can make such kind of good games. Because our company, we have over 100 people, and we probably cannot make such kind of games. And then, but I will have one suggestion before you enter each market. Actually, you should understand the customer behavior. For instance, like in Japan, they like to have a task. They have a specific task. Okay, tell me like 1, 2, 3. What should I do? And then what can I? After I do 1, 2, 3, you give me an expectation, and what can I get? That's Japanese. For that's overall. But there's some more details you should figure it out. For Chinese market, actually, especially for the hardcore games, me too hardcore game, Chinese player like to okay after I pay the money, just give me to a ranking number 1, 2 immediately. I want to see that because I just want to be a hero within the game. So no matter what, just show me the result. That's a Chinese game. But recently, I mean, within this year, actually, there are more and more casual games in China, and they make a perfect. They make a lot of money. So that would be probably one of the things you can think about because a lot of Western, like I mean, you guys make a lot of very good casual games, which is probably suitable for the Eastern market.
I'm just curious, like, what kind of game are you developing? Oh, okay, all right. For the gentleman that was sort of starting developing, want to tell us about the game? Too early? Okay, all right. It was worth a shot. How about, like, in general, for the guys that were able to walk around downstairs, the indie showcase, were there favorite games that you guys liked, or you guys as publishers, were there any that stood out, in your opinion, in terms of
I mean,
quality?
again, like a lot of the frustration is it depends on the market. So like I mentioned before, we do global and China publishing pretty much. Those are pretty much our 2 lines of business. And it for a lot of the indie developers without looking for global, yeah, I would say that there were a lot of talented games. I mean, a lot of talented teams with really great games. But some of them are not necessarily looking for global. They're looking for China, and it makes it a little bit of a more difficult situation. And then your impression of the game changes because then you're evaluating it for the China market, which is much more difficult. And but yeah, definitely some amazing indie games that I saw. I was trolling those booths basically, and yeah, I mean, I think so. I don't.
How about in terms of genre as a publisher for your territories in Asia? What tell us a little bit about what type of genres do you think work best for specific Asian territories, or what type of stuff is popular, or maybe where is an opportunity to bring something new to the markets?
As I mentioned, like we can separate into 2 parts. Like for casual one, actually, there are like one game is called I forgot the title of the name, but it's created by Happy Elements. You guys can go to the App Store to take a look, and then actually their game is very similar to Kings. I mean Candy Crush. But we have that kind of discussion. Why Candy Crush cannot be that successful in China, but Happy Elements one can. Our conclusion, I mean, our company conclusion was because in China, people doesn't have the candy culture, but they have the other culture. So that's why as I mentioned, I mean, you got to understand some culture because they don't have a touching feeling. Okay, what's candy? I mean, but for the Western people, okay, yeah, candy is candy. I mean, it's fun, it's cute. So that's something you got to be aware about. And for the mid to hardcore game, what we can see is Actually, I'm not sure you guys know about like a Three Kingdoms, which is a very like a 2,000 years ago, like that's a real story, and then people know almost all the Asian people, like Chinese people, know about the story. And in the past 2, 3 years, 4 years, actually all the like a genre, topics titles are all about Three Kingdoms. But nowadays, because all the users are kind of sick of everything is about Three Kingdoms, so it's become more and more diversify, so which is good, probably good for you guys to have a chance to have catch the users' eyes and that they have fresh views. Yeah.
Matt, any thoughts there?
Yeah, man. So the original question was
Genres.
Genres, okay. Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to the market we're talking about, and for us, we look at all types of games. Like we're not ever pinpointing specifically looking for, okay, we want to do an RPG game this quarter, we want to do more hard game. I mean, we're really just looking for the best games that are out there, and trying to bring them to the right audiences. And so we're very strong on the casual side. In the past, we've had pretty big successes with Crossy Road in the global market. As well as Ski Safari, which is another indie dev from Australia in Defiant Development in China. And so we have a very strong casual, I guess, genre and portfolio, but we also have more mid-core and hardcore titles that we're always trying to look for more of those as well. So, I mean, it's hard to say what we're looking for in terms of genre, but like,
or how about like characteristics?
New
of
genre
games?
would be amazing. I mean, like the beauty of the gaming industry is that you'll see new genres pop up or new types of games pop up every 6 months or so. I mean, before venture capitalists, were idle games, they're all web-based. I mean, for Crossy Road, no one was really using incentivized ads, and now look at how many games now just build that into it. I mean, revolutionize the industry, and that stuff is kind of keeping us on our toes. So we never know really what we're trying to target. And
actually, I have one suggestion. I mean, because since you guys probably don't know about like Asia or Chinese market, so one suggestion would be talk to as many like a publisher as possible, and then try to choose one perfect one which meet your expectation. It's like choosing your girlfriend or boyfriend. I mean, yeah, it's like probably somebody is good in sports, somebody is good in like a movie or reading, and you just don't know like which habit actually matches the best. I mean, you talk with them first, and then they have their own specialties, and then make sure that one they are kind of they have a good track record. They promise they is trustable, and they can help you to deliver something. Yeah, so it's like choosing a girlfriend.
I completely agree with that. Coming from the publishing side, I mean, it's so much. It's also about the team, and I mean, it is kind of like picking a girlfriend. I mean, you evaluate the game, but I mean, the team also has to work, and we work with a lot of small teams because we basically try and figure out the best way to complement them. And if the team is, if the right strengths and weaknesses don't match up, then it's not going to be a successful product. And that's pretty much it.
What does a publishing deal actually look like? Because you're saying you work with small teams. Is there money that you give, or is it all revenue based? Is it do you give production support? How far along are you looking for a game to be? Just what does it look like in general?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a loaded question, but it depends on the partnership that we're constructing. I mean, we typically offer production support. We'll basically pair a team, like the original development team, with our own development backbone. So, I mean, depending on the size of the game and the project, it could be a team from 8 people to 22 people, 25 people. And it depends on the scope of the project and how much needs to be done. Usually we'll be working back and forth. If it's on a global game, we'll be very much every day communicating back and forth with the developer, making sure that we're all on the same page. For more of the China domestic games, it's more of a weekly communication session between developers, and we're basically going back and forth with them and talking about them. But we're going to support them on the development side as well as the marketing and promotion side. And I think it helps being a Chinese company because you have all these production resources at your disposal. Where in the States and Western countries, it's much more expensive, and so we try to basically complement as best as we can. And the partnership model is basically. A lot of our partnerships tend to be 50-50 rev share after App Store and carrier fees, and a lot of that is because after we launch the game, we reinvest back into the game, and we also have our product teams that are still spun up for those games for as long as the contract lasts. So I mean, as long as the original developer keeps updating and constantly updating the game, we'll continue to run the game on our side. So typically 2-year partnership, 50-50 rev share. Sometimes there are minimum guarantees involved, but I mean, for us, when minimum guarantee is discussed, it kind of takes away from our marketing budget for the game. Because I mean, every game that we take on, we have a marketing budget, and yeah, I mean, I could go on forever, honestly. Like, just tell me to stop.
Just to add on top, I mean, there's a couple different ways you can do it, right? So we adopt a more flexible approach because we don't actually launch that many titles per year now. So everything really depends on case by case and also the needs of your developer partner. So in some cases, a developer may say, hey, we're really strapped for cash and we will, could really use an upfront or a license fee or something like that, and we'll do our best to accommodate those needs, and because we want to make this a meaningful partnership. All things being equal, it's going to be more like what Matt just said, so rev share plus some type of marketing commitment, because that's where we feel like as a publisher we can add the most value is on the marketing side. So there are other sources of funding if you're looking to for funds to kind of complete your game. You've seen Kickstarter is definitely saturated, but there are successful cases of people raising money from various sources. I think on top of that, you can also kind of tie in incentivized bonuses to the deals, right? So if certain KPI are met, that will trigger additional marketing or additional bonuses, etc. So it's really, and it also depends on how many different territories you're factoring into the deal. So the more territories, the bigger the potential pie, and the larger the commitment from the publisher.
The other thing I would want to point out here is when you look at that, you need to divide into Google Play, not Google Play, Android and iOS, because for the Android part actually is more about the publisher connection with those big stores. I mean the market stores. So and they will help you to, because of their connection and all the stuff, and they can help you to promote your games. For the iOS part, actually, they can go to the such kind of advertising company to purchase the inventory for you. So the way to do that actually is a little bit different. One is more like a connection. The other is like buying their advertising for you. Yeah.
Yeah, so especially for the Android marketplaces in China, there's a lot of bartering that's being done, right? So I agree to release my game on your platform, and you get exclusively for X amount of weeks in exchange for featuring, etc. So you kind of have to barter and juggle the best available offer.
So how about the HTML5 games?
I mean, so our experience with working with HTML5 games is we've been using them as promotional tools and kind of using them in WeChat to kind of draw audiences and stuff like that. I mean, we haven't published any HTML5 games. I mean, we stick to mobile and PC, and yeah.
It's kind of interesting because like about a month ago, we tried our first HTML5 game in China. And then there were some, about 2 months ago, there's a conference, and there are some major players in China, and then they discuss one side of China, Chinese people say that, I guarantee you are a liar. There's no way for you to make such kind of big money. And the other part said, I really made that much money. So when we read that news, and then after we released the game, after 2 to 3 weeks, we decided to cut the game, because couldn't see any revenue at all. And this time I came over here and talked with some people around here, and it seems like HTML5 is way bigger in the Western market. That's what I heard. I'm not sure, but I mean in Chinese market, at least for us, we didn't see anything yet.
Yeah, I think if you have the if you have the capability to do HTML5 games, the experiences are getting better, and it's helpful to have that skill, because then you can kind of push your game out to as many different platforms as possible. So that's a big advantage of having that capability. But I think in most of the games that we're doing are a little bit less casual, and people are looking for more, I guess, bigger production values and stuff that HTML5 may not be at quite that level yet. So.
But not only China, but what about like Japanese market and the Korean market then?
You mean for HTML5?
I've got nothing.
Yeah.
So I mean, like the limited knowledge I know about HTML5 that we've done is doing them as promotional tools. And honestly, actually, we kind of, it was a funny story. We were going to do one for Crossy Road, and someone had already pirated it. It's China, so someone pirated it already launched an HTML5 game version. It got so much traction. It did so incredibly well that when we were about to do it, it was like, there's no point in doing it. And we were talking to a company about doing an HTML5 version as an advertisement, and it just didn't pay because it already has a pirated version that's out there that has all this traction.
Yeah, I don't know. I could be wrong, but I'm not really aware of a hit HTML5 game in Japan or Korea.
So I don't know much about it. So. Yeah.
Thank you.
Publishers, you guys have questions for other publishers?
Publishers. Look at you, York.
How are you guys in the back doing? You guys okay? All
Good
right.
emails.
I guess I'd love to kind of use the opportunity for guys that are actually doing development to, you know, give us a chance to take a look at your game, or, you know, bounce ideas off of us. I know a lot of times that's what developers would like to do, and the reason why they're here is sometimes is to meet with publishers and get feedback and ask questions. So for you guys that are actually developing games, any questions? All right.
Hi. Question about Line and Kakao. Last year, everybody was thinking that Kakao is really going down in Korea, but now there are some games published by Netmarble and Kakao together. So what's your view on Kakao in Korea these days?
It's definitely not as dominant as before, where you would see 10 out of the top 10 games being Kakao games. I think there's still a lot of value for casual games in Korea because of the viral effect of the social graph that Kakao holds, and it is the only thing used for messaging in Korea, as you know, probably better than me. So yeah, there is definitely still value, and I think that's one of the reasons why in China, Tencent has a pretty dominant stranglehold on top grossing games, because they're able to leverage the social graph of their mobile messaging as well.
Yeah, one thing I want to point out here is actually Kakao, in terms of strategic-wise, is a little bit, probably a little bit not that good, because about like 2 years ago, they release a game like in weekly basis, like 4 to 5, which makes their like a user kind of sick of okay, every week you like text me such kind of a lot of games, but I don't know why you do that. And in the meantime, like Line in Japan, Line actually is also a Korea company. Actually, they are kind of selecting like only specific games which meet their users, and then they would like release such kind of games. Since as WeChat, although WeChat is like I think it's 25% of something shareholders of Kakao, but they also do such kind of selected games only. So Kakao, I mean, it's a little bit kind of regret that they did that. I mean, in the very beginning. So they are trying hard to recover from that, because there's the other, I think it's the other code NAN or something. This is Never One. Right. Yeah. So they are like catching up. So actually, it's kind of competitive, even though the market is not that big. Yeah.
What's your view on Southeast Asia, especially Philippines and Indonesia? Are these relevant markets already? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of population, I'd say Indonesia is very, very attractive. Philippines has actually historically been a really good test bed for soft launching games, because you can pretty much go in with English and have people understand what you're trying to do. So yeah, I think emerging markets in Southeast Asia, I think it is supposed to be the fastest growing region in the world. So that's exciting. Interesting thing about Southeast Asia is it is also very fragmented, so there is no kind of universal way to do things. So what works in Thailand is going to be different than what works in Singapore. for example, or in Indonesia. So, but I think the major hurdle right now in Southeast Asia is infrastructure. So, if you're in Vietnam or even Indonesia in certain places, you're not getting LTE or even 3G in some places. So that's a hurdle for guys that are making more, I guess, higher quality games or less casual games, more heavyweight games.
Yeah, I want to add one point here because I just went to Southeast Asia recently and did some research. And as like Steve just said, yeah, about the market and like infrastructure, and then like talk with the developer out there. And it depends on what you're like, what do you want. If you are like more like casual games, like Philippines or Indonesia would be good because you can get a lot of downloads. But the pay rate or like even a credit card penetration rate is not that good at all. So if you want to make some money, I would recommend you to go to see like a Thailand or Malaysia or Singapore. But Singapore definitely like English would be fine. But the other two places you got to think about, first, especially for Thailand, you got to localize into the Thai language. For the Vietnam, you got to work with like a local partner because they are very strong like a local app store, which you should like think about, and then local payment. Yeah.
What devices are people playing on? I keep hearing it, not casual games, more fuller experiences. So to me, that says one-handed play is not necessarily that important. So are people playing on larger phones, or is there a tablet market, or what are?
It's a good question. I'd say one-handed play is more normal or common in Japan. So you get a lot of people. It's a I guess a very subway or bus kind of driven transportation system. So a lot of times you'll see people in the subway just kind of like holding it and then just playing with. So consequently, the top games for the longest time are, excuse me, in portrait mode, where you're basically using your thumb or one finger to control the game. So that's less the case in other countries.
In Korea recently, actually, there are a lot of ARPG games. So they like to have such kind of actions. So you will see like there are a lot of. It's not like top and down. It's like it's like that. So people can use like a kind of field, like a moving and like heating or something. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess because Samsung is so dominant and Android is so dominant in Korea, you'll get a lot of pretty processing power, right? So there's a ton of Unity 3D ARPGs that are practically console quality. So.
But I mean, in terms of the China market, it's pretty much what you'd probably expect with this type of market, where you have the majority of users using these pretty low-end Android devices. So I mean, you're your high ARPU player. The players that are paying the most for your games, they're obviously going to be having the highest end devices. But I mean, the reality is that with a lot of gamers in China, if you're going for the mass market, you're actually targeting a lower end device. And I think with our QA service that we test all our games, we tested against I think about 400 devices or 500 devices, and they're all pretty well used in China. So I mean, and I would say in terms of tablets, it's not quite there in China. It's very expensive, and I think that with iOS being even more expensive in China than it is in other markets, just iOS devices themselves, it's just not a big market. I mean, you really get the upper level of the crust in terms of people that can spend money and stuff like that.
And I really highly recommend, if you are serious to the Asian market, like Japan or Korea or China, you should just purchase a ticket, go there a week, and take a look and feel like Beijing, Shanghai, or Guangzhou, which is a south city, and then look at talk with the people there and try to talk with them and understand them. What kind of game do they want to play, and what kind of user behavior they are.
Yeah, you're welcome to come visit and hang out with us. We don't get a lot of visitors.
Cool.
Yeah.
Beijing duck.
KTV? No.
Any other questions? Developers, publishers, gaming? Okay, well with that, I guess if you're more interested or you think of questions later, we can hang out for a bit. you can contact us after the event as well. Feel free. That's why we're here. So thanks a lot for the input. Hope you guys found it informative and helpful. And with that, I think we are done.
Yeah, I think that's good.
So
Thank you.
thanks for
Feel free to
sticking
come
around.
up to us.